This episode of Truth Table is brought to you by our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation. Get it where all books are sold.
Sisters, how y'all feel? Brothers, y'all all right? If this is your first time at Truth Table, welcome to the table. And if you've been sitting at the table with us all these years, we are so grateful that you have been listening to us through these years, and we are inviting you to partner with us and support our work at patreon.com/truthstable. Now pull up a chair and have a seat at the table with us. Hey y'all, welcome to Truth Table, Midwives of Culture for Race and Truth. I'm Ekemini.
And I'm Christina.
This table is built by Black women and for Black women. So welcome to the table, C. How you doing, good?
What does your shirt say?
Let's sigh. Intentional.
Yeah. First of all, I believe you ought to count your blessings.
Amen.
Name them one by one. Look and see what the Lord has done.
That's right.
So I've been trying to count my blessings and also tell the truth about the moment that we find ourselves in 2025, y'all. So that's how I'm doing. I'm grappling with the outcomes, the implications, the consequences.
Yeah.
How about you? How are you doing?
Let's see. I'm crashing out and keeping the faith. I'm just like, what is happening? Let's sigh. Anybody who knows me knows that this is my favorite phrase. And it will make its appearance in this group chat. as my fellow group chatters know. It just encompasses so much. Annoyance, fatigue, frustration.
Yes.
But in an elegant way with the le, So I just,
Elegant frustration.
Let's sigh.
The name of this episode, Elegant Frustration.
That's right. But yeah, I just I don't know. It's just it's a lot. It's like I think I said this like a week or so ago. It was like 2025 told 2020 hold my beer, I was like, oh, y'all thought y'all saw something in 2020. Let me know. 2025 said I got something for you.
2020 was unprecedented.
Yeah.
And we're over here trying to be unprecedented in 2025. So.
Yeah. I think it wasn't I hope I don't get this wrong, but I believe it was Zora Neale Hurston that said there's years that ask questions and there's years that answer. I don't know. There's a third category. There's the years that knock if you buck. And I'm like,
I was gonna say there are years that play in your face.
Yeah, hello.
The additional.
2025.
She asked us.
2025 is knocking and bucking.
For more wordsmith, but it is playing in our faces.
And and it didn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
That's the part.
Yeah.
That's actually the part.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be
this is when the crashing out happens.
This is the part. This is what.
When the crashing out happens. When you start to slowly walk down the road and you begin to just sit, think, and reflect. It's just like
it really didn't have to be this
really
way.
What's going on right now. Now, what you on that?
Why?
Well, let's contextualize.
Okay.
Because if this was somebody's first
time at the table. Yeah.
And they were like, what? And they were like, what they talking about? Like I sense and I feel that they think something's not right.
Yeah.
But what is the thing that they think is not right? Like what would that be? And what's so wild about this is that this is the kickoff episode for our series.
9th. See, it's nice. Season 9 of Truth Table.
Season 9, and this series is called Still Resisting.
Still Resisting.
It's an echo from our very, very, very
Still
first season and very first series.
That's right.
On the topic of resistance.
That's right. What were we resisting then?
My goodness, what could it have been? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was, I don't know, white supremacy, Christian nationalism, and the form of the embodiment of Trumpism and all that it would bring and the way in which it would cause serious conflict within the church, the witness of the church, the way that it would impact the quartet of the vulnerable, the poor, the widows, the sojourners. I mean,
yeah.
It was very clear. Then it got clearer.
Oh, yeah.
And here we are with a series called Still Resisting.
It's like Groundhog Day, right? Except not.
I don't like deja vu.
It's Groundhog Day on steroids, right?
Don't like
because
it.
when Truth Table came out, can't believe it was 8 years ago, if my math is correct, which is
No, don't worry about that.
could not be.
Just live into it. What is real right now? Go ahead.
Well, yeah. And so there was March 2017 when Truth Table launched Women's History Month. And we're again in Women's History Month, as is our custom and tradition. We were resisting the first Trump regime. And that's just what that was. Like you said, the white supremacy, the Christian nationalism, xenophobia. Right. Oh my goodness, the xenophobia. And all of that, was in that pot of depravity. And now
a pot of depravity.
A hot boiling pot of depravity.
Yes.
And now we find ourselves once again here in 2025 under a second regime. And the second is not like the first.
A perfected one.
Oh, yeah.
Massaged.
Oh, yeah, they perfected the wickedness. Yeah. And so I remember people saying, oh, well, we have been trying to encourage themselves. These, I would say these are the people that were resisting, right? They went into the booth and they tried to resist. They're like, okay, well, we survived the first time, right? We can do it again. Like, what did y'all do? What were your survival strategies? Pretty much, from what 2016 to 2020, where and I'm thinking, y'all, is we not living in the same? I mean, I understand being hopeful and being practical. Everybody has to do what they got to do. But I'm like, the first is not going to be like the second. This is a completely different ball game. Like, and I it's just not the same. And I hate that we are back here. I lament that we're back here. I am so saddened by people's selfishness, by their individualism that was only looking out for me and mine, and not even looking out for even theirs, right? As we just learned that a child died of measles in West Texas, an unvaccinated child. It didn't have to be this way. And now we are here. And I just really think that we need to take the time to cry and to weep and to lament. And if I'm honest, we haven't had the time. We haven't had the energy. We haven't had the capacity. There is some deep pain and some deep hurt that people would name the name of Christ and say that they went and chose the strong man in the name of Christ. Oh my God, how can you have no fear? How can you take the name of the Lord thy God in vain in that way? Do you not fear the thrice holy God? This was this is so beyond left and right. If you don't understand, if you cannot understand that, you can't discern that, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. This was about resisting a wicked man, period. Period. And that was what would need to be done. And how could you go in there and not understand the assignment? I cannot get beyond that. And if you don't have the wisdom and discernment, then you don't even need the wisdom and discernment to know, like, you don't, which lets us know that there people are under a strong delusion. So part of my heart goes out to them because I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are so deeply entranced, what I mean, have been bewitched and beguiled, so there's that sense. And then the part of me is like, nah, like, I have no sympathy because there were over 1 million people that didn't survive that regime. There are over 1 million people. That was just to COVID alone. And then now we have a whole confluence of many diseases that are threatening to become pandemics. And do we even know about them? No. Why? Because the NIH, CDC, HHS, they have all been mandated, to stop external communications. And so we have to work frantically to get the information that we need in order to protect ourselves. I'm tired. I have had it up to here.
Yeah.
And it's got to stop.
I mean,
receive that monologue. I'm done.
Listen, hey.
I'm done. I'm so done.
I mean, like even from an evolutionary psychology standpoint, people are, I mean, I think it can be assumed that people vote overwhelmingly in their personal best interest.
Yeah.
However, humans are interconnected, right? And so, and people might not want to they may not want to affirm that they're also interdependent. We're definitely interconnected.
We are.
And I think most of us get that.
Interdependent.
Yeah. Most of us get that.
Yeah.
That's why there's been things like segregation. That's why there are things to try to keep people apart. Because we are actually connected, right? So you have to work against keeping people connected, right? But we actually need to care about what's in the best interest of other people, even if it's not for like altruistic or noble or kind of spirit-led reasons, even if it's just for just personal safety. It just matters. It matters. If people don't get a quality education, we know that's directly tied to criminalization.
Right.
So we should care about great schools. One, we should care because those are human beings.
Yeah.
But even if it's just personal self-interest, you should care about people having opportunities so that they are less likely to take opportunities that would cause you harm or impact your community. I mean, we're interconnected.
You mean education and jobs stop bullets?
It could be helpful. It could be incredibly helpful to do that, right? Right. So all of that to say is that I think what we see in this particular moment of Trumpism is something that is overriding even self-interest. And the mythology that goes along with Trumpism is bigger than, the price of eggs, right? So that's that playing in people's faces nonsense. This is about more than the price of eggs. Although there are people who really do feel deeply economically and are economically franchised. It just ain't my fault. I am not the reason. Black women are not the reason.
Come on.
Why there is an economic downturn in middle America.
Period.
Black women ain't the reason. Black women are not the reason why there is oppression and disenfranchisement in Appalachia. It's unfortunate, but we ain't the reason.
That's right.
And so the problem is that people have decided to buy that lie.
The lie that we are the problem.
That we're the problem.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, they can't look at themselves, which is ironic because the people who are like the main ones who talk about personal responsibility. It could never be that this Black applicant is a stronger applicant than me. Mm-hmm. That could not exist. No. It has got to be that they have been favored in the process. It has got to be that. Mm-hmm. And so the irony of that, right? And so we have multiple generations of this mythology.
I'm tired of the myths.
Multiple generations of mythologies that take away or that make an excuse for dealing with the real issue. The way that greed is destructive. It's destructive to the lives of white men. Mm-hmm. It's destructive to the lives of Black women. Mm-hmm. It's destructive for all of us.
Yes.
But what Trump is able to
even
do,
for the greedy person.
for sure, absolutely, certainly for their soul.
Yeah.
But what Trumpism and the philosophy that's around that, which predates Trump himself,
for sure,
the philosophy that's around that is able to help people to not repent, to not dismantle their mythologies, but it gives them a reason to continue in the fantasy that they're in. That's actually more powerful than dropping the price of eggs. Mm-hmm. I think being able to not have to reckon with greed, white supremacy, xenophobia, being given an excuse to not have to deal with that is actually, I think, more attractive to people than this myth, this strong man saying, I'm going to improve the economic system. That's not happening, and it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. That was never the plan.
That was never the plan. I mean, but we're not the problem.
Right.
And for hundreds of years, this has been the American mythology.
That's right. That we are the problem.
Indigenous people are the problem. Black people are the problem. There's always some other group that is the problem. And so for the last maybe 20 years or so, we have had more intensity about talking about reckoning with racism.
Sure.
And it has been enough that has sent people into a whole tizzy. And the data shows it. The data shows that even right now, despite the increase of hate crimes and which groups are most targeted, the data shows what group believes that it is the most targeted by racism. It is white men in America.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not true.
That's not true.
That's just not true. But people operate out of their belief system.
That's right.
And if you give people the opportunity to have that as the belief system,
Perception is reality. Yeah.
It begins to make sense of whatever's happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They've been given that lie.
Mm-hmm.
And that lie comes with what lies lead to: death, pain, evil, wickedness, and a lot of harm to self and to others. And so that is part of what Trumpism has been able to capitalize on, is that it sells a lie so that people don't have to reckon with the reality of the country, and they don't have to reckon with the reality that they must repent. We must make right. We must repair, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't surprise me, the closer we get to conversations about reparation, the harder hearts begin to get.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's always been a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual, white supremacy is a spiritual stronghold. We've been saying that for ever on this podcast. Before this podcast, because we've been about this life since before.
Yeah, I mean, but sin makes you delusional. I mean, I think that's why there are people who even now, even if they're not they don't have these same sociological leanings, right? And they certainly don't have these same theological leanings. They're still like, yeah, this is off. Like, this is weird. This is uncomfortable. Like, this shouldn't be. Like, can't we do better? There are people who would disagree with our political analysis in the sense of the way that we think about racial stratification, which I would say is very clearly defendable through primary documents from history. But I digress. But there are people who don't know that, right? But that's fine. There are people who would be like, nah, I don't really get all that race stuff. And I may have a different religious beliefs or convictions than you, but they still are like, what's up with a fascination with this particular person as a leader? They clearly do not have the competency and character to be in a leadership capacity. Yeah. And yet here we are.
Here we are. Well, with that, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back at the table. Don't go nowhere, y'all. Stay tuned.
Our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation, is making waves and shifting culture. I closed this book feeling like I had just partaken in a multi-course meal, filled with grace and the courage to carry on. And I believe you'll finish this book feeling the same way. Morgan Harper Nichols, artist and poet. Buy Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation at our website or wherever books are sold.
All right, we are back at the table, talking about all the things, fascism and the like. You know what? I get tired of repeating myself. I resent that we have to repeat ourselves.
Is it you personally, or do you mean what you represent repeating itself? Like the communal repeating?
Communal.
Yeah.
Communal.
Like when I hear you say that, I'm thinking like what we're seeing is an echo throughout history.
Yeah. It's the same thing Harriet Tubman was saying. It's the same thing Ida B. Wells was saying. Same thing Fannie Lou Hamer was saying. It's the same thing Miriam Makeba was saying. It's the same thing. El Hajj Malik Shabazz was saying the same thing. The same thing El McKay was saying is the same thing Bernice King is saying. I'm tired. Why do we have to keep saying the same thing? I hate that. I resent the fact that season 9 of Truth Table has to be still resisting. Why? Why? Why couldn't it be overcoming? Or how we got over? I mean, can we get over? Listen, I'm tired. Are you serious? It's just, why are we back here again? Yeah. I mean, it's like Groundhog Day, but no, it's Groundhog Day on steroids. Actually, it's not the same. It's even more. It is just, you know what I mean? And even just your sociological, psychological analysis there about, evolutionary psychology and all that. The fact that people do not recognize or acknowledge the fact that we are in a social contract, right. Like it or not. We are in a social contact with other people that love us, people that hate us, like, you know what I mean?
Clearly.
Who want us dead. Like,
clearly.
We're in a social contract. Like, and so our flourishing is bound up with the flourishing of other people. And you should not, and I'll never forget when Pastor Michael said this, that you should never want less for your neighbor than you want for yourself. And you see that all the time, reduplicated in every sector, in every way, from politics to economics, down to interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so sick of the selfishness. It's like no consideration for anybody else but you, and not even consideration for yourself. You vote against your own interests, your own interests. And this is not just white people. This is Black people. The 8%. Ooh. Ooh. Baby the fool. I am so tired of living in a world of fools, breaking us down.
Well,
when y'all should just let us be.
Let us be.
You know, I had enough.
Listen, I mean,
I ain't never crashed out so many times on that True Simple episode. I am done.
First of all, there are no words. There are only song lyrics because we're in the middle of a hostile government takeover.
We are.
That's why the song is number one on iTunes.
Number one.
And it is a bop, and I do believe it deserves a line dance, by the way. But
yeah.
all of that to say,
our homegirl, we're gonna.
I know we have.
Actually, I think I talked to her about that.
We have consulted with people about line dance to the song, but well, you know, what's one of the things that you just said, Ekemini, you were like, we resent having to talk about this right now. And yet we feel compelled because in reality it is our show. We can talk about whatever we want to talk about, right? So in theory we could be like, yeah, we're going to talk about being an overcomer. We're going to talk about politics and fashion. I mean, we could talk about anything we wanted to talk about.
Retreating,
exactly. Hello, we believe in that.
Great topic,
but it's a great topic.
Yeah.
But I think we felt compelled, to not contribute to the gaslighting. To name the thing that is in the room, that is in the room of the country, that's in the room of the world. Because what the U.S. does yes, the U.S. is incredibly narcissistic culturally in centering itself in global business. That is true.
For sure.
And yet, what happens in the United States does impact the world.
Everyone.
It impacts the world. And so there's the sorrow that I have for when I talk to people who are in public service, whether it's in the U.S. or around the world, who are so deeply impacted by just the last several weeks of 2025.
That's right.
How their work,
the first couple of weeks of 2025?
Bam.
We're not even halfway through.
Yeah. Well, the humanitarian work that has been impacted, the people's sense of safety, and then there's other dynamics. This happened during the last Trump administration, in my work around trauma, the way in which the normalization of abusive men impacts the shaping and the development of other men, and the way that we think about leadership, not only on the presidential level, but on the smaller civil level, in our churches, in our families, in our communities. All that oozes together. I'm never surprised when I see faith-based organizations have, particularly male, it's largely male leaders. Not that there can't be off-the-chain women leaders, but it's disproportionately male leaders in general. So it's going to be more male leaders with issues who have an inability to be able to select healthy leaders, to have an inability to call to account unhealthy leaders. Boys Club. It's not surprising. Because the same ethics that are at work to be able to tolerate and to ignore Trump's personality dysfunction are the same ethics at work to ignore pastoral leaders who likewise don't have the same amount of power or platform, also can operate under the same type of dysfunctional personality, same type of greed, selfishness, use of platform, exploitation of people, cover-ups, lying, all of that stuff. And so for people who we saw almost a decade ago begin to leave the church, we're going to continue to see that dynamic because they are interconnected, and you cannot gaslight people around this.
That's right.
They have a right to say, because what the media is going to say is that it was the evangelicals who did this. And it was overwhelmingly the white evangelicals who did this, to be very specific, to be very clear. Not every group that falls under that category, but certainly that demographic has a long-standing history of voting in ways that secure economic power for them under a philosophy of paternalism. That they simply know better than everyone else, so they should just be in charge. And when the media talks about that, they're not going to do the nuances of other believers.
They're not.
They're just not going to do the nuances.
Sorry, people of color Christians. They're not.
No.
We all put in the same blood. I mean, people know that there's obviously a difference
Right.
between Black Christians, but at the end of the day, it still mars the witness of the church. People ain't doing none nuance, because you know why?
Yeah.
Nuance takes a lot of love, and it takes
Patience.
It takes patience. You have to be curious, to dig deeper. Yeah, and curiosity requires love, right? And people ain't. They've had it up to here. They don't care.
Yeah. And the consequences
they don't care why. They just know that you did it, and we're here now.
Yeah.
And I'm suffering, right? Because that's the thing about it, is that we all are going to suffer to varying degrees now.
Right.
It's not as if the 92%, I'm praying for God's protection. But please believe I am.
Yeah.
But the reality is that because we are in a social contract, we all rise or fall together.
Yeah.
There's no exceptions.
And I don't know this Christianity. So there simply are different Christianities in America. I do not know this Christianity as a true Christianity where you just get to say, I don't care about what happens to other people.
I don't know that one.
I mean, what is that? What is up with that?
Man, yeah.
I mean, it is a distinction of the faith that we are to love our enemies. Our enemies, which is why the laughter and the cruelty and the dismissal that is coming from people who say that they are Christ followers when they know that there are other people who are or perceive themselves as suffering is so wicked. It is so wicked. Right. And we see that constantly. We're constantly seeing people not only gaslighting, not only minimizing, but justifying the pain that their neighbors are experiencing and going to, and I think under the false pretense that they're some kind of way going to be insulated from it. Like they're not going to be insulated from it.
You always think it's going to be them. Oh, no. It's going to come. You do reap what you sow.
Right.
And I think that we're going to be seeing.
But why would you want it to be them? Why do you want people to suffer?
What is
why
that?
Why would you not want a sick person to have medical treatment? Why would you not want a human being to have a quality education? We don't have to agree on all the things. Why wouldn't I want you to have a quality education? Why wouldn't I want you to have clean water? Why wouldn't I want people to be able to appreciate the places, the beautiful places of nature in the United States, our national parks? Why would I not want that? Why wouldn't I want there to be top-notch scientific research? Why would I want to punish scientists? Because that's going to punish me. Like I want cancer researchers to be fully funded because
to find the cure.
Because there are people who I love who are fighting cancer as we speak.
Right
and so why would you choose
to
tie the hands of someone who could help you? This is where we get into the spiritual warfare and the confusion of it all. It is.
That's right.
It is so chaotic. And this is not about your views about the size of government or the national debt. This is not about the size of government and national debt.
Right. That's right.
It is a bizarre statement. It's offensive. It is the same nonsense that people raise when they want to talk about the Civil War as being about states' rights. Of course not. The right to own people,
keep enslaving Africans.
It's the same type of philosophy, right? It's very perverse talking points. That's where we are. I don't know why do we want to harm other people? Why don't we think that there's enough for everybody?
Right. What this scarcity mentality, it's diabolical.
I mean, there really is enough for everybody. I'm not saying that like optimistically. I'm not saying that like I'm not pulling that from the sky. Like there really is enough. There's enough oxygen
the richest
for everyone on the planet to breathe.
There is enough.
There is enough.
It's more than enough.
I mean, my only hope in this, the reason why I push myself to not embrace a assumption of inevitable downfall is because I think as Christians, we are prisoners of hope, like Jeremiah. And I will always leave space in my imagination for God's intervention that's already happening. Restraint is already happening.
Oh, yeah, it's already happening. Yeah, for sure.
I know that we know restraint is happening because we see people stopping things here and there all the time. Restraint is happening. But even with the restraint happening, I have got to maintain a sure-footed hope that at any moment, God will arise. At any moment, at any point in time. And God has done that throughout history and is doing that in ways now. I have to maintain that. Otherwise, I concede God-like status to wicked people. That they somehow control the world, that they control the earth, that they control my mood, that they control my reality. And I cannot concede that over to wicked men. I just can't do it. And at the same time, we on this episode lamenting and we big mad.
It's bad. It's beyond. It is beyond. The spiritual warfare is real. I just keep on thinking about just the ways in which people have just been, duped and deceived and still are under a strong delusion.
What's the lies they like?
Yeah, the lies that they love, they like, that they nurse, thinking about how we, in these times, in these days, because I absolutely believe we're under judgment. There's no doubt about it. We have the leader that we deserve. And I say that collective we, not because I voted against him. We'll be very clear about that. I'm a 92%er. But it's a collective we. Why? Because we're in a social contract. It doesn't matter how much you try to tear it up and put in the shredder, it still exists. And we're still here, and I know that God's people have suffered through great times of tribulation.
Right.
Great times of suffering.
That is the story.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about that. There ain't no reason why we should think we will be an exception. But I do think that we just have need of endurance. Obviously, we'll talk about that, through the course of the season as well. But I have an eye toward the spiritual on it too, and I'm thinking about just the great falling away and how it talks about that in the last days and how many people will be falling away. And I see this obviously as a precursor to that, the witness of the church just being marred on so many levels globally. Yeah. Of the American church, I want to say, be clear about that. Yeah. Because we're not the epicenter of the church. Praise God for that. That's great news. It's really good news, actually. Thank God. That's a hopeful point. Because it's a hot mess out here. But yeah, I do, what helps me to keep from spiraling completely, is, or bottoming out. Let me say that, is
because I'm definitely spiraling.
Oh, spiraling, but bottoming out. I'm not, Yeah. Yeah. It is looking to Jesus, right? Isaiah 26:3, talks about, God will keep in perfect peace, the one whose mind is stayed, on him, and so I'm often just praying, really, and I think part of loving my enemies is actually praying for them. For sure. That is what is going to keep me from bitterness. Okay. That's what's going to keep me from, I would say entitled bitterness, entitled resentment, like, like justified, like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't want to be among the bitter, because the bitter will break, and I don't want that. I also don't want to be resentful. I'm a person of faith. I believe in Jesus. I believe that the joy of the Lord is my strength. I'm a joyful person. I'm a realist though. Yeah. I'm a realist, and I would like to not be right for once. Yeah. I would like to be politically wrong for once. Politically incorrect for once. Yeah. I'm not happy to be right about this. I mean,
the anger, the buzz of anger is a cheap high that fades. It's not sustaining.
And it's toxic.
I would like peace. And I agree with you. As a matter of fact, if all of a sudden today somebody was like, ta-da, no, it's not. Let me show you. It's really not that bad.
This was really what they were really doing.
You've been a good
business. Planning out reparations for you all. Okay.
I'll be like, great. I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think we got to deal with what is, but still maintaining an imagination Not for what we can do in our own strength, but what God can do and what God's promises are. I think in moments like this, the promises of God are always important, but they are particularly grounding in moments like this.
Oh, like, for sure. Yeah.
So I mean, we're under no delusion. America is not a mythological sacred nation. It's just not.
No, not.
It is a place that God has allowed for an appointed time for God's good purposes.
Empires rise and they fall.
That's just what it is. And at the same time, I think that it's important that we intercede as a part of God's priesthood of believers. Absolutely. And to be a priest is to take up the ministry of intercession. Period. I think that is what our business has to be about.
That's right.
Is interceding on behalf of those who want to be our enemies. I don't want you to be our enemy. I really don't. Please just leave me be and I'll leave you be, right? We don't want enemies, right? But we are called to intercede for everybody. And I think that is what we have to do. We must do. And then I think we're also called to live in a way where, and I don't mean this like in like a cliche way, like, like the faith over fear and just like it's a throwaway term, but if the people who claim to have a home secured for them with Christ forever, if those people are running around filled with fear, panic, and confusion and just doomsday, then we're not ready to fulfill our purpose of being able to be an expression of peace and stability and faith and compassion in the world. And I believe that's what we're called to be. So that doesn't mean that we're not gonna get an A+ at that all the time, because we have issues and we're grieving and we're falling and I'm crashing out. But the point is, I think we have to find our spaces to vent, and to restore and to worship.
I think we gotta take turns too.
Exactly. We have to tag team. We have to tag team crashing out.
I got the faith.
We got to tag team.
I got the hope.
Everybody can't crash out all the time.
Yeah, you gotta take times.
Exactly.
Your scheduled crash out is from this time to that time.
Exactly.
Hold on for another 10 minutes.
And if we're chilling there too long, somebody has got to say like, hey.
Yeah.
Look up to the hills.
Amen. Yeah.
And again, there is room for lament, but we also have to also be encouraged to look up. If we cannot be the voice of we have hope that is unshakable, then we become a part of the doomsday narrative. And what good are we? Where is our saltiness? Yeah. Where is our saltiness in the midst of this moment? So we have to be truthful, but we also have to have that preserving salt in this moment. So
let's walk in the light.
I think this series, my hope, is going to help us work that through aloud as others listen to it, right? And obviously they'll engage online and they're with us and they're in different circles about how do we do that well? Yeah. How do we do that faithfully?
Yes.
During this really toxic, crazy time.
Amen. Yeah. Well, y'all, season 9, Truth Table, still resisting. We're going to talk about all of those things.
Yes.
You're going to see some tears, some more tears. You may see some You're going to see some laughter. Well, we're always going to have some laughter. And we're going to talk about all the things in between, so stick with us, stay with us as we journey, through this time.
Yeah. We're hoping for surprises.
Hey, God could surprise us with miracles.
Please.
He can do it. He absolutely can do it. Lord, please. Oh, here our
please
cry.
Let us be wrong.
It's like the God, if you're listening. God's listening. God's always listening. So anyway, thank y'all for taking a seat at the table with us this time. Please, we want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts about this episode, this series of Still Resisting. Oh my goodness. We know y'all got a lot of thoughts. So make sure that you subscribe to Truth Table. First of all, we are on YouTube.
I mean, we are.
We're on YouTube.
I mean, hello.
We're on, we're of course on all your podcasting platforms. And please support us on Patreon, y'all. Support us on Patreon. Part of the backlash is against the truthful work of Black women, not only of our, like ourselves, but many others, that are trying to tell the truth in this moment and are being penalized for such. So we ask you to please partner with us on Patreon to keep the work of Truth Table going and to stabilize the work of Truth Table during these perilous and unstable times. Send us your thoughts, about this episode at asktruthstable.com. Don't forget to rate and review the show on iTunes and your favorite podcast player. We have been your hosts, the executive producers and hosts of Truth Table, Ekemini and Dr. Christina Edmondson. We'll see you soon on the next Truth Table. Bye, y'all.